Anna from the AgingMillennialEngineer blog wants to have a conversation about school shootings. So let's talk. Now, right from the get-go, I need to stress that one of the 2 points she's trying to make in this blog post is valid and sound. We Americans need to manage things better if we want to curb mass shootings, school shootings in particular. Unfortunately, the second point she makes, the one about the AR-15 being the problem here, is completely off base and out of touch with reality. So, first paragraph. One of these happens every 60 hours on average in the US. Now, this statistic sounds scary, but it's 100% wrong. She's getting her information from the Huffington Post, who is in turn quoting Everytown for Gun Safety's deliberately misleading statistics. The Washington Post wrote a really good article calling them out on their bullshit, and you should go read it. Second paragraph. I like M4s, which are, for all practical purposes, an AR-15, just with a few extra features that people almost never use anyway. Now, Anna doesn't mention here that one of those extra features that separates the M4 from the AR-15 is the ability to shoot bullets like a fucking machine gun. The United States government classifies M4s and M16s as machine guns and federally restricts them. I get that in the Army, single aim shots with your M4 are preferred to rock and roll full auto, but she doesn't mention that. Instead, she just claims that a semi-automatic one trigger pull fires one bullet AR-15 is the same thing as a federally restricted machine gun. All she's doing is trying to cement in people's minds that the AR-15 is a military weapon, which it's not. Next paragraph. You know, while I may only have shot plastic targets on the ranges of Texas, Georgia, and Missouri, that's not what these weapons were designed for, and those targets weren't shaped like deer, they were shaped like people. Every weapon that a U.S. Army soldier uses has the express purpose of killing human beings. That's what they are made for. The choice rifle for years has been some variant of what civilians are sold as an AR-15. Whether it was an M4 or an M16 matters little, the function is the same and so is the purpose. These are not deer rifles, they are not target rifles, they are people-killing rifles. So let's stop pretending they're not. So what? The Army's M24 sniper weapon system is just a Remington 700, which actually is a deer rifle. Although the Army trains its snipers on human-shaped targets, civilians literally do train using targets shaped like deer. The AR-15 is an excellent hunting rifle. Just because the military uses a full automatic version of it as an infantry rifle doesn't mean it's something that can't be used for sporting. My AR-15 has only been used to kill balloons, fruit, and broken hard drives. It's not a people-killing rifle. The Russians built the Mosin Nagant bolt-action rifle to kill people too. I have a friend who hunts deer with a Mosin. 73 years ago, it was almost certainly used to end human lives, but now it's a deer rifle. What a rifle was designed for doesn't matter. What matters is why it's being used. Moving on. Is anybody surprised that nearly every mass shooter in recent US history has used an AR-15 to commit their crime? Now, she actually goes on to list a bunch of reasons why someone would actually enjoy owning an AR-15, and then claims that those are reasons why mass shooters use it. I disagree. It's almost certainly because they are super freaking cheap. They're cheaper than Glocks, Berettas, 1911s, and most other semi-auto handguns. If the AR-15 were banned tomorrow, the rifle of choice for the next batch of mass shooters is going to be whatever's in the $400 to $500 price range, regardless of its recoil and ease of loading and carrying. This rifle is so deadly and so easy to use that no civilian should be able to get their hands on one. Oh, there it is. The big one. You know what? 30 years ago, semi-auto Kalashnikov variants were cheaper than AR-15s. When Patrick Purdy used an AK to kill a bunch of kids in the Stockton schoolyard shooting, President Reagan said pretty much the same thing she's saying. But I do believe that an AK-47, a machine gun, is not a sporting weapon or needed for defense of a home. Oh, that's weird. How come we're not hearing about the dangers of the evil AK-47 anymore? How come the AR-15 is the scary military weapon du jour? Well, it's probably because a cheap AK costs like $600 or $700 nowadays, but everybody who knows how to operate a CNC mill is selling cheap AR-15s. The AR-15 is not some special super gun that kills people better than any other semi-auto rifle. It's simply the cheapest one out there. And besides, rifles including the AR-15 and AK-47 were used to murder 374 people in the United States in 2016. By comparison, handguns were used to murder over 7,000 people. Twice as many people were murdered in 2016 by unarmed assailants using just their fists and feet than with rifles. More than 4 times as many murders are committed with knives and other cutting instruments than with rifles. The AR-15 might be deadly and easy to use, but it seems that American murderers prefer pistols, knives, and their bare hands. Now, let's hit this one real quick. The military police protected us from threats in the garrison. They had 9mm Berettas to carry. They were the only soldiers who carry weapons in the garrison. We trusted them to protect us, and they delivered. Oh, that's nice. I wish I had armed police officers stationed on my street 24 hours a day. Civilian police officers have no duty to protect an individual. But if someone's breaking into an army barracks with intent to do harm to the soldiers therein, the MP's response time is going to be the time it takes them to run from one building to the other, ready to protect their comrades. I wonder how long it takes the police to respond to civilian emergencies. Oh. You do not need a military-grade rifle. You don't. There is no excuse. The United States government agrees with her wholeheartedly. In fact, that's why the Hughes Amendment in the Firearm Owners Protection Act makes it absolutely illegal for civilians to own machine guns manufactured after 1986. Let's be clear, the AR-15 is not a military-grade rifle. It is not a machine gun. It is a semi-automatic rifle, just like this guy, and this guy, and this guy. Side note, until recently in U.S. history, civilians could legally own better firepower than military-grade firearms afforded to our U.S. soldiers. But that's a topic for another video. You know where I can get an Apache helicopter and a Paladin? Oh, well, no, you got me there. But I do know where you can purchase their Russian equivalents, or their American predecessors. God, I love the internet. You're not going to stand up to the government with this thing. They'd take you out in about a half a second. Now, it's not the point of armed resistance. In this hypothetical scenario, no one's going to march up to a tank or a drone and shoot at it with small arms. The idea is to make things more difficult for a tyrant and their jackbooted thugs to even want to try to impose their will on the people. And honestly, as a liberal, I'm very happy to own an AR-15 in the current political climate. If you're a liberal, you should probably think about getting one too, but that's also a topic for another video. So in this last paragraph, she reiterates her main points. 1, that we need to do something about mass shootings, and 2, that nobody needs an AR-15, so society needs them gone. Let's talk about the second part first. It's true that nobody needs an AR-15, but it's also true that it's the best tool for many jobs. Hunting, competition shooting, and home defense spring immediately to mind. Yes, I said home defense. You don't need a rifle, just get a pistol. Just get a shotgun. How about something that works a little better? And yes, you can hunt with an AR-15. The .223 round may be a little too small to ethically hunt deer, but coyotes, groundhogs, nutria, feral pigs, rabbits, and porcupines are all fair game. And if you spend a few $100s on a new upper receiver and barrel, your AR-15 can now shoot larger rounds that lets you hunt any game in North America. So you might not need an AR-15, but then again, there's a lot of stuff you don't need. You don't need a car, you don't need a computer, you don't need a smartphone. So what? Plus, like I said earlier, let's assume that since society needs them gone, all AR-15s magically turn into cheeseburgers tomorrow. Problem solved? Of course not. The mass shooter is just going to use a $600 Raz 47 or Wasser 10, and then we're going to start having national conversations about how nobody needs an AK-47 again. So what do we do? How do we stop mass shootings? Well, let's look at what mass shooters have in common. Domestic violence, a sense of disempowerment, and toxic masculinity. These red flags must be recognized and actions must be taken. It's not going to be something as simple as, let's keep these people from buying guns, or Trump's stupid report your neighbors bullshit. I'm talking about rehabilitation and healing. These mass shooters are people who are feeling lost, alone, and helpless and don't know how to deal with these feelings and emotions. They won't get that help on their own because of the tremendous stigma our society places on such issues. What really needs to change is the way we as Americans treat people who need help. We need to be able to recognize the signs that someone's about to commit these horrible crimes and give them the support, the assistance, and care they require. Mass shootings aren't about AR-15s, and they're not actually about guns at all. They're about people who need a hand but are unable to ask for help from a toxic society. But that's hard to fix, especially without free universal health and mental care. Blaming the AR-15 is easy. Fixing society isn't. Anna, I'm on your side, really I am. I'm also a millennial liberal. I played Oregon Trail in elementary school too. Like you, I live in the big city now, but I grew up in small rural towns. I'm kind of a socialist too. I voted for Bernie, but even he wasn't quite far left enough for me. Given all the things we have in common, I'm kind of surprised you weren't seeing the bigger picture. Don't let yourself get distracted by the tools used to commit mass murder. Banning AR-15s won't help. You'll just be putting a band-aid on the tumor and hoping it goes away. We need to understand why mass shootings happen and stop the problem before it starts.